Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this evening's meeting of the South of the Borough Neighbourhood Committee planning meeting here at Chesterton School. It says here I should wish a particularly warm welcome to the members of the public. So warm welcome to, metaphorically and literally, to everyone who's come here. Thank you for coming out tonight in this balmy weather. It says thank you to people watching online. I don't believe, maybe we've got technical glitches. The meeting is being recorded, just to make you all aware, and it will be available on the council website at a later date. Unfortunately, it's not being cast live at the moment. So I'm Councillor Mark Bain, and I will be chairing this subcommittee this evening. Of course, we're all very aware of the red weather warning in force today. So I think everyone's come loaded with drinks, which is good. We have got some drinks in the corner, and we can get some more if necessary. With some fans here, obviously got the doors open. If anyone's feeling faint or anything, or if we feel we need to take a break during the meeting, then just do let me know. In the event of emergency and the sounding of an alarm, the emergency evacuation procedures to leave by the nearest exit, which is behind me over here. If you require assistance, please remain seated, and you'll be assisted from the building as soon as possible. In regards to COVID risk mitigation measures, we'll keep the meeting. This room obviously is clearly ventilated for a number of reasons, and if you feel that you want to wear a mask, not you would in this weather, but if you do, and please do go ahead. But there's no obligation to do so. You can follow the agenda online if you wish. We have access to the meeting packs, the agenda, and some other information. That will be if you go to the council website, kingston.gov.uk, and then the committee's agendas and minutes link. That's where you'll find the information. Members and any members of the public who are speaking at the table in front, please remember that when you're speaking, turn the microphones on and speak into them clearly, please. And as we all should do in public meetings, if you can just check your mobile phones, make sure they're switched off or on silent mode, please. Thank you very much. So, just like to introduce myself. I'm, as I said, Councillor Mark Bain, and chair of the meeting this evening. I'll introduce the other members, so starting to my right.
Hello, I'm Councillor Steph Archer, and I represent Hook and Chesington North.
Thank you, and on my left, starting with Councillor Andreas Kirsch.
Hi, good evening, Andreas Kirsch, Chesington South and Modern Rushford Ward.
Good evening, Griselda Kirsch, Chesington South and Modern Rushford.
Good evening, Councillor Afi Afilaka, representing Hook and Chesington North.
Thank you, everybody. We have received apologies of absence from Councillors Ansari and Mirza, and we have Councillor Andreas Kirsch and Councillor Afilaka in their place this evening. Thank you both for attending. Please, the next item on the agenda is item 2, which is the minutes of last meeting. Please, can I sign? I don't know who was at the last meeting. Potentially two. Well, I don't know if anyone was. Was anyone at the last sub-planning meeting?
Councillor Kirsch.
Councillor Kirsch, you were there. Okay, so are you happy for us? There was a bit of a turnover since then. Are you happy for me to sign the minutes as a true record of the meeting? Thank you very much. Declarations of interest. Next item. Does anyone, any members, have any, or would like to disclose any pecuniary interests or any other registrable or non-registrable interests relevant to items on this agenda? Looking around, I don't see anyone wishing to speak on that. Okay. Just some housekeeping arrangements, and then we'll start the kind of meeting proper. Regarding public participation, there is a registration scheme for residents and applicants wishing to participate in the planning applications that are considered by this committee. Members of the public who have registered to speak will be invited to come forward to the table in front of the public gallery at the appropriate point, which will be after the initial presentation. And we believe we've got now it's two people who will be speaking, members of the public. And Secondly, members of the public are reminded that the planning application process is constrained by the need to have regard to current planning policy at national, regional and local levels, as well as all other material planning considerations, including case law precedent. The decision-making process is often described as quasi-judicial because local planning authorities have to act reasonably within the bounds of planning law and the above considerations, and are not free to determine planning applications simply because of the weight of public opinion. So there is a bit of a structure to the meeting. It's important we try and stick to that as much as we can, just to make sure that that any decision we make do hold weight. Otherwise, we could be open to challenges. The item on the agenda today is development on the land to the rear of Heather Court and Hunters Road in Chessington. And I'm going to pass over now to the officer, William. Sorry, your surname is?
Chair, there is late material. We need to let people know that there's some late.
Oh, sorry. I beg your pardon. Thank you, Emin. Before I do that, just to turn... we'll just notify there is some late material. So have they got, in terms of who's got access to they've been provided? So have you all been, the copies are on the table. Has everyone had a chance to pick up the copies of the late material? Or if you want to, please do, the copies are on the table if you want to. You have a look at them now. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So yes, further copy, there should be more copies on the table just out there on my left. So I'll now pass over to William Flaherty. So, Will, you're the lead officer, one of the lead officers planning for the council, who's going to be presenting this item. Over to you, Will. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this evening we are looking at planning application on land to the rear of Heather Court. The application proposes the demolition of 17 lock-up garages, the erection of 6 terrace houses with associated parking, amenity space, sheds, cycle stores, and refuse and recycling facilities. On this slide, you can see the site location plan. So we can see there is Hook Road to the west, which forms part of the borough's strategic walking and cycling network. And we have Heather Court to the immediate north of the application site. The site area falls under 0.25 hectares and is therefore a small site for London Plan Policy H2 purposes. On this slide, we can see an aerial photograph, predominantly the garages located along the southern boundary of the site, and then a garage in the northwestmost corner, and then hard standing to the front of the garages. Here's another aerial photograph. Here you can see Hook Road to the west, King Edward Recreation Ground beyond that, Hunters Road to the north. So this is a site photograph looking from within the site north towards Hunters Road, Grange Road. So that's going to be the main access to the proposed dwellings. View looking east towards Grange Road. This is taken from the western part of the site. So you can see the garages to be demolished on the right and numbers 2, 4, 6 and 8 Grange Road in the background. View looking north towards Cader. This is in front of the garages looking immediately north. We can see the dormer window. This photograph from in front of the garages looking north-east towards Heather Court. You can see the established planting between the site and Heather Court. This slide looking west towards Hooklands Court. So the other side of Hooklands Court is the Hook Road. Just in terms of the access gate that you can see broadly in the middle of the photograph, it's not a designated public right-of-way. This is a view looking south-east towards the garages to be demolished. Just in terms of the use of the garages, it's set out in the submitted transport technical note that one of the garages is rented to a local resident, one is vacant, and 15 are rented to private individuals who use them primarily for storage purposes. This slide shows a view looking east from the southern section of the site. So this would be the area of garden partitioned from the rear of 239 Hook Road. Approximately 200 square metres of garden would be retained for the 2 flats at this Hook Road property. Here we can see the existing site plan. So the site access along the bottom of the screen, the existing garages to be demolished, and the area of garden land beyond that to the south. On this slide, we can see the elevations of the existing garages. Now on this slide is the proposed site plan. So quite a lot to see here. We can see broadly that there are 2 clusters of the terraced dwelling houses. So one sort of on a north-south orientation, the other facing east-west. You can see 6 on-site car parking spaces, which would be fitted with electrical vehicle charging points. You can see each of the dwellings has private amenity space at the ground floor level. And you can also see the outlines of vehicle tracking diagram showing the swept path analysis for refuse and/or fire tender vehicles, demonstrating that the rear of the site can be accessed. This slide shows the proposed plot plan. So later in the presentation, we'll refer to units 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is just a summary of the proposals. So the demolition of the existing garages. In terms of the 6 terrace dwelling houses, 2 would be 2-bedroom and 4 would be 3-bedroom. So that's 66%, which is a significant improvement on the minimum 30% required by our policies. As you can see, private amenity space for each dwelling, 1 car parking space per dwelling. Cycle parking, that would comply with London Plan standards. Enclosed refuse and recycling store. In terms of carbon dioxide reduction, there'd be a 66% betterment above the building regulations requirements, which is a significant benefit of the scheme for development of this scale. And in terms of materials, it's proposed primarily timber cladding with green roofs above. On this slide, we can see the proposed ground floor plan. So you can see that each of the dwellings is dual aspect. Some of them are triple aspect, which helps with providing good levels of outlook, good ventilation opportunities, especially on days like today. We can also see, yes, the private amenity space. So here we're looking at the proposed first floor plan. So in terms of first floor windows in plots 1, 2, 3, they are bedroom windows looking towards sort of Heather Court to the north. And then in terms of plots 4, 5, 6, those rear-facing first floor windows, they would be non-habitable room windows. On this slide, we can see the proposed second floor. So it'll become more apparent on the elevations, but you can see it on this slide that the terrace property, so in this case, plot 6 and plot 1, they are restricted to 2 stories in height. You have a setback of approximately 5 metres before you then get the proposed third storey at the neighbouring terrace dwellings. So it effectively steps down towards the site boundary. And again, rear-facing windows on the second floor level, they would be non-habitable room or obscurely glazed to safeguard neighbouring privacy. You can also see the proposed roof terraces, which are at plots 4 and 5. There would be privacy screens on the side elevations of these balconies, secured by planning condition to ensure that there's no direct overlooking from those balconies. Here's the proposed roof plan. You can just about make out the solar panels above the properties. This is what helps to achieve the significant carbon emissions reduction. And we can also just about make out the green roofs on other elements of flat roof at the lower levels. So this slide shows the proposed elevations, and the overall heights are annotated. So you can see on this slide for 1, 2 and 3 plots, you've got that step in from the boundary near Grange Road before it then goes up to 3 storeys. And we can just about make out, I think, the contrasting timber cladding. So we'd have horizontal timber cladding at the ground and upper floors, but the first floor would be vertical to sort of break up the massing of the buildings. On this slide, we can see the proposed elevations, plots 4, 5 and 6. So again, we can see the step down at plot 6 towards the boundary with Heather Court and Cada to the north. So this drawing shows the site sections. So it's apparent from this drawing you can see the step down before Grange Road, and also demonstrating that each of the dwellings would have 2.5 metres headroom, which complies with the London Plan requirements. Now, this slide shows separation distances at the first floor level. So this is between the built form, effectively. So you can see in relation to Cada, at its closest point, the first floor of plot 6 would be approximately 14.2 metres from the primary rear elevation. That increases to 16.5 between that elevation and the dormer. In terms of Hooklands to the west, it would be 19.5 metres. Looking towards the plots 1, 2 and 3, again we can see approximately 23 metres between the front elevation of plots 1, 2, 3 to Heather Court. And then we're looking at between 14.5 to 15 to Grange Road properties. While not shown on this slide, again, we have to be mindful that at the second floor level, we've got that setback for plots 6 and 1, which is approximately 5 metres further than what's been shown on this drawing. Just in terms of the late material, just to give everyone a brief summary. So in terms of the point 1, we have received a consultation response from the neighbourhood traffic engineer raising no objection to the proposals from a highway safety or car parking perspective, subject to planning conditions. Point 2, amendment to paragraph 7.8. This is just to make this paragraph consistent with the planning balance paragraph later in the committee report. Point 3, just adding the CO2 reduction as a positive within the planning balance. And then we have amendments to conditions 3 and 6, just to take account of other conditions as listed, and then a renumbering of planning conditions just to reflect a formatting error. So overall, it is considered that the proposed development would be of a high quality. It would deliver in excess of the 30% minimum 3-bedroom units required and needed within the borough. The proposed units would be of a good standard of accommodation overall. There would not be any significant adverse impact to neighbours, and the proposed car and cycle parking arrangements would accord with the London Plan requirements. It is therefore recommended that planning permission is approved, subject to the conditions set out in the committee report and the late material. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you much. Thank you for that, Will. Can I now invite the, well, I think it's now 2 objectors to come forward and sit down here in front of the microphone. I think we've got, is it Mr. Thomas Elsom and Miss Angie Furman? Hi guys, so is it Mr. Elsom and Miss Furman, is that right? Thank you both. So I think you've already been explained how this works, but we've got 5 minutes. Yes. You just be talking about how you want to allocate that between you. If we can let you know, well, yeah, well, have you decided if you want to do it half each?
Yeah, we're just going, I think Mr. Elson's going to go first, and he doesn't feel that he would need half the time, but perhaps if he gets to half the time, indicate that, and then I'm going to take the rest of the time. Okay.
Is that, yeah, if that's okay. So we'll let you know if you do, Ms. Fones, yeah, if you do reach kind of 2.5 minutes, we'll let you know.
2.5 minutes, they'll just let you know.
Okay. And then we'll stop the clock, we'll stop the timers before you do. You don't have to kind of rush you while you're changing positions to change speaker. That's fine, we'll stop the timer at that point. So yeah, over to you if you want to turn your microphone on, and when you're ready to go, we'll start the clock. Thank you.
How does it turn on?
So it should be, is there a switch the same as ours? It should be a little switch, is that?
Oh, it's on already. Okay. So yeah, a few points that I have to mention to raise. Has there been any thought or provision for alternative garage provision for the people currently renting them from the landlord? Where do around 17 to 20 cars park once the garages have been demolished? I don't know how it's known quite what the contents of the existing garages are, suggesting that few of them are empty, not used. Have London Fire Brigade been contacted for their thoughts regarding access? There's already concerns from the LFB regarding the narrow roads of Priory and Grange Road for emergency access, let alone an additional 20 cars parked in the area as well. That's not taking into account the existing stop-start traffic on Hunters Road between the south end of Grange Road and Gosbury Hill, which is a problem that still hasn't been acknowledged, addressed or solved by the council. The development sounds as though it's been approved already. Smacks of further greed for the council and the developer to me at the expense of existing residents of Grange Road who don't want this development to happen, haven't asked for it to happen. Being forced to live on top of each other like sardines is not particularly pleasant, especially in this weather we're experiencing at the moment. Is there any consideration for additional services in the area to be provided as a result of 6 extra properties potentially being delivered? We are also have been made aware recently by Thames Water that we're all going to have water meters being fitted, as the area that we live in is in a seriously water-stressed area. So taking out of the equation the 950 homes already approved and underway at Signal Park in Tolworth, how will building an extra 6 homes behind Heather Court assist with that issue any further?
Thank you very much for that. Moving on to Mr. Furman, you have 3 minutes 10.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll let you know when you're going to 30. We've got 30 seconds to go.
Okay.
But yeah, you can
Thank
use
you.
your time at that time left. When you're ready.
Okay, so I speak on behalf of the residents of Grange Road who live directly behind the proposed development site. We strongly object to the plans. As per the many objections, I believe 44 objections sent during the planning process for multiple reasons. After reading the report dated the 19th of July, it appears that the response is biased in favour of the development, and the concerns raised by existing residents have not been satisfactorily or fairly addressed. Conversely, concerns about the proposed development have been minimised. We have not been reassured that the true impact of this development on existing residents has been adequately assessed. Many policy guidelines have not been adhered to, and responses in the report are vague in many instances. Our main objections continue to be the proximity of this build to our properties. The separation distances quoted in the residential design SPD have been ignored. The development does not meet the minimum guidelines of habitable rooms being 7.5 metres away from the boundary of neighbouring properties, nor does it meet the 21 metre separation distance between facing windows of habitable rooms. Both distances fall considerably short of the guidelines at 2 metres and 14.5 metres respectively. Privacy glass does not provide a sufficient or permanent solution to such a significant disregard to policy guidelines. I would also like to mention that all houses will be visible and in close proximity to existing properties, not only property 1. The fact that property 1 is 2-storey does not alter the fact that the 3-storey properties will be even more overbearing as they are only a few extra metres away. Loss of light, despite point 11.10 in the report stating that officers have undertaken a 25-degree daylight test, no details of these calculations have been shared with existing residents. A property that is almost equal in height to distance will create a shadow, and you could see clearly on that plan, I could see the angle was definitely more than 25 degrees, not less than the 25 recommended. We need detailed confirmation and evidence of these calculations and their accuracy. The overall scale of the build is overbearing on the surrounding properties, in particular for houses 8 and 10 Grange Road. The impact on the outlook of the properties, privacy, loss of light and general disruption will subsequently have a direct effect on health and well-being for the residents. Design is not in keeping with the surrounding area. None of the features are in keeping with the houses that we are surrounded by. All houses in the local roads have back-to-back gardens. There are no properties which are built backing directly onto another property's garden. All buildings in the vicinity are brick-built, 2 storeys in height and have pitched or sloping roofs. None of these features are present in the planning application. This has a huge impact on visual amenity. Effect on wildlife and their habitat. Has a bat survey been undertaken? Because we frequently see bats in the vicinity around Grange Road, and it's probable that the garages provide roosting areas for them. And the loss of trees was mentioned already. Parking, 6 spaces is not adequate for properties of this size, which will more than likely have multiple adult residents, therefore creating a high probability of multiple cars per property. What about visitor parking? Is it assumed that any visiting friends or relatives will park in the already overcrowded surrounding roads? Whilst we appreciate there are housing targets for the local area and the need for...
Stop there. Thank you both very much for speaking. If you can return to your seats, you may be called upon again after the next speaker. There's kind of sessions for questions from the panel, but thank you for now. So next we have Mr. Alan Pavat, who's coming to present for the developers. Thank you. Mr. if you can come forward and take a seat, please, Mr. Pavat. And so, I'm sure you're listening to the same process. You'll have 5 minutes. We'll let you know when you're down to 1 minute. But you've got up to 5 minutes. If you don't use that time, that's fine. And I can't see from here. Do you want to speak into it? Is it on? It should be live.
On? Is that on? 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Good evening. I'm Alan Pavat. As already said, I work for LH Development Company Limited, which is a small local family-run company established 80 years ago in the local area in Chessington. And this company is the applicant and the owner of the current site in question and under consideration. A pre-application was submitted with Royal Borough of Kingston in spring 21. That raised a number of questions, concerns, and all of those have been included within the full application that was then submitted in spring 22. As far as we're concerned, the dwellings meet all of the requirements laid out, not only by the Royal Borough of Kingston, but also for the London plans, as well as the National Policy Planning Framework. Feedback was offered by the assigned planning officer on the pre-application. All those points were considered. Several modifications were made, including increasing the private amenity space, strangely, but also reducing the parking spaces, changing the layout to increase the turning space for emergency vehicles and other large vehicles. Further points were raised by Kingston during the full planning application, which led to a further increase of landscaping, simplification to the structures, to reduce the consideration of overbearing, and to remove the removal of overcomplicated features such as green walls or louvered windows and various other things like that that would further complicate the building. This has all resulted in a scheme which will allow RBK to increase its current housing stock, which does have a 5-year shortfall, introducing modern dwellings with a very strong green credential, which ultimately would be an asset for Hook and Chessington North Ward. As already mentioned, the scheme does contribute to the small site dwellings and would contribute 6 to the, I think it's currently 225 buildings that need to be provided per year. The scheme, we believe, does provide an excellent alternative to the use of the brownfield site and the introduction of good quality housing to the local area, which is in short supply. There are, and we are therefore seeking approval. I do believe that most of the questions that have been asked or objections that have been raised have been covered extensively in the report by the planning officers, but would obviously be open to further questions and feedback. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Pavat. Yeah, again, if you return back to your seat, and we may call upon you again shortly. Firstly, we turn to if we've got any questions from panel members for the objectors. Anyone got any questions? Doesn't look like it. Okay, so no. Well, thank you again for your time. Any questions for Mr. Pavat, representing developers? Yep, we got a couple. We have got a few. Okay. All right. So yeah, Mr. Pavat, if you could come back, take a seat. Again, we have 5 minutes for questions, members. So if you try to keep your questions concise, and Mr. Pavat, if you can try and answer, as concise as you can, but still obviously answering the question, that would be great. So I'm ready. I've got Councillor Griselda Kirsch first. Then I saw Andreas, and then Steph, and then if any other questions come up, we'll go to those. But over to you, Griselda, if you want to ask your question, please. Right. We'll start the clock.
I have 2 quick questions. Given that this is timber cladding, has a thorough fire impact assessment been done? And the second question relates to one of the questions the residents had. Can we actually see a diagram? Do you have a diagram of the light impact assessment?
So for the cladding, it's obviously fully sustainable cladding. It would undergo any, for the conditions that would be set, it would undergo any fire safety testing requirements. So yes, whatever the conditions do lay out for us that would be assigned, it would meet all fire regulations. And with regards to the loss of light, the 25%, that study wasn't. Sorry. That study wasn't undertaken by us. I'm not sure if that's.
I think that'll be. We'll move on. I think that'll be. We'll ask the officer about that. I think that'll be more relevant for him. So thank you. Sorry, Mr. Pavat, if you can kind of face the microphone when you speak. Andreas.
Thank you, Chair. I was wondering, obviously, you have a flat roof and you have the roof gardens and the solar panels and all the benefits here. I'm getting the idea here, but I was wondering if at any point there was a pitched roof considered with solar panels as well. Obviously, the biodiversity gain wouldn't be possible, but is there any reasoning why pitched roof has been considered, or has it been?
In terms of the design, I mean, we did see this as an opportunity to not to do something challenging, but to do something modern. And a lot of buildings in the Kingston Borough are built in this way. with the timber cladding and with flat roofs, and as it's potentially habitable space, we would have then been potentially looking at putting dormer windows up there to make it habitable rather than just a pitched roof. So to return it to livable space and certainly allow us to meet the to meet and exceed the 33% for 3-bedroom properties.
Councillor Archer.
Yeah, so in its similar vein, they would potentially stick out like a sore thumb. They're not really in keeping with the local area. I appreciate what you're saying about sort of modern, but if it's not in keeping, I don't know. Did you not consider potentially doing more brick, pitch, that kind of thing?
We did, and by the time you looked at what was in Grange Road, what's on Hook Road, and certainly the 2 courts around, you go from properties that range from the 60s, and a long way back. So there was no, but in terms of the
So if
in
you
terms of the age
we have to focus,
and design of the building,
Sorry.
Hooklands Court and Heather Court are very different to other buildings in the area and would have been when they were built as well. And it was seen as an opportunity to do something aesthetically pleasing. The timber cladding, whilst it is different, it's proposed, I believe, to be cedar cladding that would age over time and weather well and be a softer on the landscape.
Thank you. Yeah, follow up, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, how does the timber weather in English weather? Because I know it's quite sort of Scandinavian type vibe, but I don't know, how does wood, over the years, how will that age?
I'm not an expert in that, but I know that over time, as it's exposed to sunlight and the natural qualities of the wood, it will silver over time. If it's cedar, it will be less red, and weathering happens from sunlight, and as sap comes out of the wood, it greys and silvers. Yeah.
2 years before it needs treating again.
We've got about a minute left. If anyone else got any questions or follow-ups? I think okay. So that's thank you again, Mr. Pavat. Thank you to everyone who spoke. The next stage we will move back to William Flaherty. If you can kind of wrap up and kind of if any kind of points that were raised within that, if you can address any points you think you'd like to from the objectors and the presenter, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. I've made a note of the comments raised through the discussions, and I'll try and address all of those now. However, please do prompt me if I've forgotten something. Now, in terms of the timber cladding and the materials, Condition 4 would require samples to be submitted if planning permission were granted. And as part of that, we'll be looking at the weathering process, how long it takes, ensuring that it is a high-quality product that's not going to sort of degrade within a short period. Also, looking at Condition 19 requires a fire strategy to be submitted prior to the commencement of any above-ground works. Now, part of that, under the London Plan policy, requires details and materials to make sure that they are suitable, fit for purpose, and not going to cause a fire safety issue. In terms of the design, as it is a backland site, it will be partially visible from the public highway to the north. However, it does give an opportunity to explore a different character and design. So it's not directly adjacent to other properties. For example, so it's considered that the design that we have arrived at is high quality, uses high quality materials, but also provides a good standard of accommodation with acceptable outlook.
Sorry, if I asked you to keep quiet. We've had the public participation section. I know it's frustrating, but I appreciate it's frustrating, but we have to stick to the procedure, follow the rules. Otherwise, we risk not fulfilling it. If we can keep it to a minimum, please. Thank you. So we've had the public participation section. Sorry, thank you.
So in terms of separation distances, that's also been raised. The SPD does contain guidelines for minimum separation distances generally, so 21 metres between habitable rooms that face each other. So the development does not strictly meet all of this guidance. However, looking at the development as a whole, the incorporation of opaque side timber basically on the projecting bay windows to minimise overlooking to the side, and considering the separation distances we have and that the first floor bedroom windows would be bedrooms, less active habitable room uses, it is considered on balance that it would be acceptable in this case. In terms of daylight sunlight, yes. So in terms of separation distance to boundaries, it is a backland site, which, strictly speaking, the residential design guide does not, that 7.5 does not strictly relate to that. But looking at the development in the round, considering all policies, it is considered that it is a good design, provides a high quality of accommodation, without having to compromise on levels of outlook, aspect, etc.
Guys, we can't take this conversation back and forth between yourselves and the office. I'm afraid we have to keep it. Otherwise, we don't. If we come to a decision which you might approve of, then it could be challenged because we haven't followed the procedure properly. It's the way these meetings have to work. I'm afraid. Thank you.
So in terms of proposed car parking levels, So the BRE 25-degree rule, so as part of the officer assessment, we will have looked taking a 25-degree measurement from a midpoint of the affected habitable room window. So that has been undertaken by the planning officer, and the development passes that in relation to affected habitable room windows. And it's only where there'd be a breach of that 25-degree that a daylight sunlight assessment would be required. So because of the separation distances and passing the 25-degree rule, it's not considered that there would be any significant loss of daylight or sunlight. In terms of proposed car parking, the 6 spaces, 1 per dwelling, that would fall within the London Plan maximum parking requirements, which is one for 3-bedroom units and 0.75 for anything below that 3-bedroom. So we're clearly within the maximum number of spaces permitted by the London Plan. And the guidance is clear within the London Plan that we should not be refusing development on the basis of a relative under-provision of parking, given that it meets the standards. There were concerns raised about utilities and whether there's sufficient infrastructure capacity. There would be separate consenting regimes via the utilities provider in the event of approval. So that would need to take place. And also there would be community infrastructure levy payments due as part of the development, which goes towards funding infrastructure within the borough. Just in terms of bats and biodiversity, so looking at the Bat Conservation Trust guidance for surveys, the development does not meet the threshold for its location or type of building to require BAT surveys prior to the commencement of development. That aside, if bats were to be encountered, there is legal protection for protected species under the Wildlife and Countryside Act and the Habitat Regulations 2017, which basically, if a bat roost were to be encountered, the developer would have to seek a protected species licence from Natural England, and if any harm were to occur, either through negligence or intentionally, that would be a criminal offence. So officers are satisfied that there are sufficient safeguards in place for biodiversity. And there's also Planning Condition 21, which requires nature enhancements as part of the proposed developments. I think that was most questions raised, but happy to answer any furthers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Will. I think there was a question about how do we know about the garages? Well, you kind of touched upon that already, I think, but just if you can confirm that. We've had your presentation, thank you. So we need to. I've let you kind of speak more than we should be speaking. I know it's frustrating. We'll try and cover all the points that you've raised already as best we can. But that was one. So yeah, that's one I remember being asked before. If you can just cover that again, please. Some more, please.
Certainly, Chair. So in terms of the existing garages to be demolished, let me get the exact figure up. This is covered in the submitted technical transport notes submitted as part of the application. So I think firstly it's important to note that comparing to modern standards for modern vehicle sizes, the garages would not be suitable for the parking of modern vehicles in terms of the dimensions set out in the Sustainable Transport SPD. That aside, it's stated within the technical transport note that 15 of the garages are used primarily for storage purposes by local businesses. One is stated to be vacant, and one is...
Sorry, well, just talk over you. It's just how do we know that? For sure, say that you've spoken to the owners, the people who are renting them out, or just... Yeah, I think it was the concern, I think, from the resident was just how do we know that that's the case?
Certainly. I can double-check the methodology of the transport statement, but they would have undertaken surveys as part of basically what they've put together. I can certainly look at that now and come back to you.
If you're able to, thank you. Well, I don't know if anyone remembers anything else that came up through the presentations that we haven't yet covered, or if not, if we have questions of clarification at the moment, not comments but questions for clarification for the officer. I think we'll just give him a bit of time. I think he's looking something up. But yeah, if I'm sure. Well, if you hopefully be able to do both at the same time to a certain degree. But yeah, if you any more questions, do you have is that a question, Councillor Archer, or yeah? And okay, fine, yeah.
Yes, I guess it's again about this timber cladding. So if the testing takes place and we're unhappy with the way it's going to weather, what then happens?
Thank you, Councillor Archer. So effectively, the condition could not be discharged until we're happy with what they've submitted. So, for example, if the developer were to submit a timber cladding which we don't think is going to weather, we don't think it's appropriate, we would either go back and say, you need to try again, or we would refuse it. So the onus would be on the developer to submit the high quality timber cladding as stated within the submission.
Do we have any other examples of timber cladding in the borough?
There are certainly examples of timber cladding on small sites elsewhere within the borough. Certainly one off King Charles Road near the Iron Bridge in Surbiton. That had an element of timber cladding. There is a tiny bit of timber cladding on a property just to the north of the application site, down Coniston Way. Again, it's only sort of a minor part, similar to hanging tile, but yes, as far as we're concerned, it's a high quality material. It has been used elsewhere in the borough. I just don't have examples to share with you right now, I'm afraid.
And is there any follow-up questions? Is that okay for now? Councillor Andreas Kirsch.
Thank you, Chair. I was wondering in regards to the maintenance, if you would allow this development. So again, as much as I herald the additional biodiversity and green space, and one of the conditions I thought was that the roof gardens or the places should not be used apart from the balconies for people to as an amenity. So, but I was wondering who is responsible for maintaining these roof gardens or biodiversity spaces properly, so that they are not adversely impacting on the overall building.
Thank you, Councillor Kirsch. I think certainly this is something which we could secure by way of planning condition. So we have an existing landscaping condition, which would be condition 20, but I think we could certainly add something about the maintenance of the green roofs, just to make sure that we're happy that there is a suitable maintenance strategy and there is a designated sort of maintenance, someone who's going to have ownership over that maintenance, be it the householder or a maintenance company. So I think that could be a condition.
Thank you. Any follow-up questions on that? No. No follow-up question. Okay. Yeah. How would we go about? Yeah, in terms of putting a condition like that, who would be responsible? I mean, ultimately, it would be kind of, you mentioned, so whoever buys it will buy it committing to maintain it to a certain degree. And how do we kind of enforce that, monitor it, and who's going to judge whether it's in a good condition or not? So it seems like something to be quite tricky to enforce. I'm sure with your knowledge had these similar things before. How would you approach doing that? And that would be something I guess we'll need to agree on now, or would that be something that we could kind of agree, kind of our stated aim, and then kind of the final wording at a later date? Because I know some of these conditions can be quite tricky. Would we have to agree that now before, if we do approve, would that have to be kind of agreed before we have that vote?
So in terms of the procedure, I'll let Herman answer on that point, but what can usually be done is we'd agree this is what the condition broadly needs to cover. Officers would go away, draft that condition, sort of put all the relevant planning policies in, and it could be something which is agreed with the chair following committee, just to make sure that you're satisfied that it covers everything that the committee and sort of residents discussed.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for clarification? I do. I'd be quite like to look at the picture again of the separation distances and where it identifies the areas where you're putting in, not screens as such, but the less visible kind of windows, just so I can see that. Now I've kind of had the full presentation.
So I think I'll probably flit between plans just to show or try and address what you've asked. So in terms of the side elevations on plot 1 and plot 6, so the property closest to Grange Road and that to the properties to the north, all first floor windows on that side elevations, they would be obscurely glazed and non-opening. So there would be no overlooking from the first floor level. Should have a laser pointer. Yes, that's correct. So at the first floor level. Yes, so plot 6, where you've got the 2 red arrows. Yes, so those side elevation, they would be obscurely glazed. In terms of the sort of rear-facing windows, so we can just about make out on the screen the kind of a projecting bay. Well, whoops. So these bays on the rear elevations. Yeah. Oh, I do have a laser pointer. Apologies. Right. So these bay windows on the rear elevations, basically the side of those bay windows, they would be obscure, so timber cladding or a timber type of screening. So that would stop oblique overlooking, say, to the side or either side. If I go to a different slide, I can show you the balconies. So you can just about make out, I think, we have a condition requiring privacy screens along the side elevation of that sort of upper floor terrace and this upper floor terrace also. So views would only be sort of within the site. There wouldn't be any direct views from the terraces to these properties to the north. And there would be a similar planning condition for terraces at these plots, 2 and 3 also. Yeah, so basically there'd be privacy screens on every side elevation of the terraces. Yep, and that is secured by condition 8. So they'd have to submit, the developer would have to submit details of the obscure sort of screens, minimum heights of 1.7 metres to prevent that overlooking.
And what would they be like? I mean, they're lit light through. Are they going to be completely opaque? Is that the right word? Or are they going to be lit light through, but not be able to kind of see like a kind of shower kind of, I guess, kind of screen? Or was that something that's going to be decided through conditions? Well, after, yeah, was that kind of something that gets decided to make sure it confirms to the conditions at a later date?
Yes, so it'd certainly be confirmed as part of the discharge of condition. I'll just have a look at the specific wording of the condition before me.
And so I think while it's doing that, I think people are looking quite tired. I mean, I don't know how we're getting on. If you want to take a quick 5-minute break, I don't think there's going to be a huge amount of time later, but if anyone wants, if people want to do that. It is raining outside. Is anyone, I mean, are we okay to carry on? Everyone okay? Yeah, all right.
Thank you, Chair. So looking at the specific wording of Condition 8, it requires that the screening must be obscure glazing to a minimum level of 3 on the standard scale.
I guess that doesn't mean much to most people around here. So would that be, yeah? Would you be able to describe that? Sorry to put you on the spot.
So it's a comparable level of obscurity to that's required for bathroom windows. So you wouldn't be able to see or make out anything from that property to neighbouring properties. There'd be no views possible.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Are you still looking for the original question about the garages? Will, sorry.
Yes, apologies.
That's
The
okay.
internet's fairly slow.
That's all right. Well, do we have any other further questions? Clarity? Okay, so we can I'll let you carry on. Well, thank you for persevering. We can move on now to comments. Does anyone have any more general comments about the application? Do we have anyone?
Chair, I think we need to move the motion.
We need to move the motion
Can
first. I
can
beg your
have a
pardon.
look?
If you just hold on 1 second, sorry. Apologies for the delay.
But we can start by moving the motion.
Yeah, where's the-
It will be, sorry.
Oh, I should have done it. Yeah, sorry. So as a procedural matter, I will be moving the motion forward. No, so we're proposing the motion, not moving it forward. Not the way, moving the motion. Apologies. First time I'm chairing a subcommittee like this. I will be, I'll move the recommendation to approve. This is not kind of predisposing, but as a matter of procedure, I'm just moving it. And we were not voting on it just yet. Shortly, I need a seconder. Is anyone happy to second? Councillor Archer, second on that. Thank you very much. So do we have any comments about the application from any of the panel members? At the moment, I mean, I will go. Yeah, so okay, and Councillor Kirsch, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think so. Obviously, we had quite a decent amount of objections from residents, and on the other hand, also the planning application now has 22 conditions, and I think many of the conditions try to address some of the objections raised. So I think there's definitely some form of mitigation. In regards to the overall, what I think is positive on the proposal, in my opinion, is the net gain on biodiversity on one hand, and the energy efficiency, the solar panels, the heat pumps. So this is what we welcome. Obviously, giving our tilted balance and our urgent need on homes in Kingston, additional 6 family homes, is to be welcome. And on this occasion, we're talking about it's proper family homes. It's not it's terraced houses. It's not another flat block of flats or whatever tower block, which usually residents are not really happy about. So in this case, I'm welcoming that we have proper family homes proposed here. The site has its restrictions. I think in the papers these restrictions have been addressed. And so overall, I think this is a positive development, having family homes. We also know, and there the development exceeds on what we are asking for. We are asked for 30%, keeping with our needs and exceeding the needs. So we know we have an urgent need on 3-bedroom family homes in Kingston, and this planning application would positively contribute towards this. So that said, I also would like to formally propose that we amend the condition 20 with the, Will suggested, that we put in some, obviously this can be agreed with the chair, that way in the spirit, if you would agree, I would like to propose that we amend condition 20, that there's a management plan in place for maintaining the roof garden spaces. And yeah.
Okay, thank you. I guess we need a seconder. So we need a seconder for that, please. Thank you very much. Councillor Griselda Kirsch. So that's been seconded. So this is just regarding an amendment to one of the conditions about the management plan for should the application be accepted regarding the green spaces. So I think from what you're saying, you're concerned about, well, you want to ensure that something's put in place so they are managing, kept to a good standard for, because, yeah, that's a good thing to do, and also because of the effect on local, neighbours as well, in terms of having a nice kind of pretty kind of space rather than it being let kind of go to rot, as it were. So is it just about maintaining sort of, yeah, okay. So, I mean, I guess we would need a condition. I mean, I think it might be, yeah, I don't know how we can kind of ensure, if someone's bought a property and they own it, it's their responsibility, but if they're owning a property, how can we enforce that they, I don't want to be completely overly prescriptive. If they've got, property, they can to a certain degree do what they want, but I understand that, it's a new building and it's going to have an impact visually to the residents, and green spaces would be a positive impact, and we want to keep them and help them make sure they're being well maintained. So so I'll just check with the officer to how that's best. We can best kind of enforce that.
Thank you, Chair. So on sites elsewhere within the borough, we've worded the conditions such that a management plan has to be submitted. So it might be that as part of the green roof, be it wildflower turf or sedum or whatever, it could be there's specific maintenance and management requirements. And part of that, it could require, for example, a sort of a welcome pack, for want of a better word, to the whoever buys the property, letting them know this is the maintenance schedule, these are the sort of companies that could maintain this green roof. So that is a possible way to secure that. And then if, for whatever reason, the roofs were to fail, or if it was identified that the greening is not sort of persisting, that would be a matter for planning enforcement, who would then investigate, and they can require the landowner, so most probably the homeowner, to comply with that management schedule that we approve.
Okay, so we could take enforcement action if they didn't. So we could insist that they keep it as a green area and they can convert it to something else if they wanted to. Okay. And that's something similar is done around the borough.
Yes, Chair. So under no circumstances would the green roofs be able to be converted to anything but green roofs. That would be secured by planning condition. They would need to submit a planning application to change that. And given that the green roofs are one of the key biodiversity and urban greening benefits of the proposal, it's not something we'd sort of look very favourably on.
Okay, so thank you for that. That clears that up in my mind. But so we need to beef up the condition then. And I mean, so do you think it's best that I think we all understand what we're trying to achieve. It sounds like we can achieve it. Are we happy for the final wording to be agreed later through through consultation through myself as chair of the committee? Are we happy to do that?
Need to vote on this one.
So so we'll vote on that. So okay, so if we're happy with that amendment to that condition, can we just is everyone happy with that? Do I have any objections? So that will be the new motion that we'll be voting on with that amendment to decide.
Is that unanimous?
I think it's unanimous. I think everyone's happy with that. Any other comments before we go to a vote? Let's see. Councillor Lodger.
Yeah, I am just really concerned about the way that it doesn't sort of fit in with the local area in terms of the look. And I completely support new homes. I think garage lots are a thing of the past, and though it's an excellent small site, I am just sort of disappointed with the design. Yes, I understand that, looking at sort of modern ideas and, we want to be looking to the future. But however, I feel like it's such a shame that this isn't kind of a brick pitch roof development that would fit in nicely with the surrounding area. I've been trying to search for other timber cladding examples across the borough, and I can't find any that done it to this extent. And I'm just really concerned about how is this going to look in sort of 5 to 10 years' time. You've got this along with the green roof. That's a lot of maintenance for a new homeowner, and I am just really concerned about the design. I fully support 6 new homes for, families, and, I think it's great. Well, I'm just glad it's not a block of flats. I really support the fact that it's family homes. However, the design I am really concerned about.
Thank you very much. Councillor Archer. I've got a few comments of my own. I was just checking if you got anywhere, it was the item around the garages and how we know, how we kind of know about their usage.
So within the transport statement, it basically says that a survey would have been conducted as part of the due diligence for the developer. I can't find the specific paragraph, but at the end of the day, the assessment has been carried out by a suitably qualified transport consultant, and we have no reason to question their qualifications or whatever surveys they may have taken out, they may have carried out to ascertain those uses.
Okay. Well, I think that's the information we have, and I think that it has been looked into, and they have, we've got the response. I think we've gone through the points now that have been raised. We've had these are the responses we've had. Thank you. I was just on terms of. Thank you everyone for attending today in such weather. There obviously there's quite a few objections. There's been a number of objections as well that I've got here from people living nearby. I'll go through a couple of the things that seem to be a concern in terms of the car parking and deemed like a lack of enough car parking spaces. I think now to get even one car parking space per new development is actually quite a lot. I mean, it's needed here, but obviously partly because of it's not a high kind of what we call P-town, so it doesn't have a huge amount of public transport. But that would be the most that you would expect these days. We are moving to with climate change, and the kind of the moving towards. Moving away from kind of discouraging people from using cars. A lot of developments now don't have any car parking spaces, so having one per development is the most that realistically we're going to get, and I think that's the way kind of the developers going, councils going. So there's other things that can be do. I know there's potentially it sounds like there's issues around the kind of on this road with car parking and traffic. These are other things that need to be dealt with kind of separately through other channels within the council, and there's other those will be ongoing. But in terms of this is something that we're having one car parking space for new development is quite per new development is quite a lot, is more. So that's so they will be that. We can't really ask questions. I know what you said, but I mean there's no. I don't think there's any kind of what we call CPZ or controlled parking zones or anything. That might be something else we consider. We can't be having an interaction now. We're just coming to something out. Okay, but. These are they are providing one car park spaces for people there more than you would get in most residences. And we as a council, we've declared a climate emergency. We generally, as a council and developers, we're looking to reduce the number of car parking spaces that there are in most developments. So this is the most that we can get, and people moving there will be aware of that situation. In terms of, I hear what people are saying in terms of the design. I do agree. It is very different to what's there. However, I do take on the points about it being offset. It's not kind of. It is kind of set back. I mean, it's all a lot of damage. It's a mad personal. But in terms of I've been to the site. In terms of from the public. There was summing up. We can't be taking conversations. We haven't been having a conversation about this. And I do quite. It's all subjective. I do quite like. I think it's quite a good design. I don't think always you have to have complete uniformity in every given area. there are conditions in place to address some of the general concerns about the materials that are being used and making sure that they are of sufficient quality. I do think it's quite a good design. It's a nice design. I like the greening aspect as well. And I think I'm more in favour of good quality design. It doesn't necessarily have to be, to say, and you go through different periods where you have different types of design, fashionable, in vogue, and it's good to see design should change and does change, and it shouldn't be kind of keeping everything the same as it was a certain period of time. So again, we're just summing up. Sorry, that. I think that and for me the main thing is that we talk about impact on the local community and the number of having more houses in relatively quite densely packed. I see that there's lots of areas, we need more housing. That's the simple fact of it. Okay, we've got lots of this is time to sum up. We've got countrywide, but not just in the local borough. We've got strict targets we have to meet, and if we don't, then we kind of eventually the control we lose complete control of development in our area. We take it away from us. So having better quality designed properties instead of all high rises, is I think not all high rises is bad, but good quality design is important, and we do need more houses, and they can't be. It needs to be spread around the borough. I think that is a big factor in making any decision when it comes to planning, and as we've also touched upon, the type of properties, the number, these are family homes as well, which is a desperate shortage of in the borough. I think there are clearly concerns, and I think all of you have come here because you're not happy with the proposals. We listened to what you say. There are conditions in place. We've put another condition in place. We've gone through the designs and the concerns. I think, on balance, I can't see any reason that will stand up for refusing this on any policy ground. And I hear, but I think it's a good. But no, but we are the ones that delegated to make these decisions. I'm afraid. And again, sorry. This is okay. Well, I can't be. This is not kind of question time, I'm afraid. So I'm going to sum up on balance, and I think this is a good design. It's providing much needed homes. It's been much needed homes. There are mitigations in place. We've looked at, and we've got a clear recommendation from the officers, which we've gone through and we studied. And I've looked at, and I can't see a clear reason why we can't refuse it. It could be challenged, and then we lose control of many of the decisions when it comes to kind of building these properties. So for me, on balance, I will be voting in favour of the proposal. I don't see anyone. Does anyone else have any comments to make? I don't think so. So in that case, we'll be moving to the vote, and that's with the amendment that's agreed around the management plan for the green spaces. So first, can I ask for everyone who's voting for the proposal to raise their hands? Okay, so that, and everyone against? And everyone abstaining? Presumably, well, you have to vote one way. Councillor, abstaining. Okay, thank you. So it's 3 in favour, 2 abstentions. So that has been carried, and the motion has been passed. So that, I think there are the next item. Well, there's urgent items authorised by the chair. There are no urgent items. So that concludes the meeting at 8:49. Thank you again, everyone, for attending and taking part. That's it. And safe home, stay hydrated, and I think I was fortunate it stopped raining. But thank you for your time. I appreciate for most of you, this is not the decision you wanted, but I appreciate you coming along and taking part. And we none of us have predetermined this, and there's absolutely.